which we were gonna draw. You can choose one of the H pencils you like. This time I'll try H2. Watercolors, the brushes, and we have our color wheel just for looking at the colors and choosing which ones are the best for our picture, and a rubber. Of course, a sketch pad, don't forget that. And when we're ready, let's watch about Asian Egypt in our slideshows. Ancient Egypt, art of symbolism. So as you can look at this painting on the wall, you can see how hieroglyphics and beautiful pictures line the wall of the Asian tomb. And Egyptians were famous of symbolism, and all this art was created for worshipping emperors and the afterlife, which they had big ceremonies, and all their beliefs were all about how to for the tombs and temples to worship the gods and emperors. So Asian Egypt, known as art with afterlife focus. The pyramids and tomb paintings, major works of important step pyramids, great pyramids. So all this was for worshipping afterlife. For making art, they used flint and copper. Tools were used to carve the wood. Pigment, which could be used to paint either wood or stone, was created from common materials such as ore from this desert, lapis lazuli, gypsum, or soot. So all these materials were found around, and you can see on this picture they were using like blue and more like they found the green color and orange, like red and other tones of the colors. And over here, we'll see that they were also very famous in doing sculptures, jewelry, paintings, and reliefs. They are the founders of the amazing architecture and the great buildings. The most famous are the pyramids. And also the interior, the design of like furniture, which like, you know, the thorn of emperor and the all riches houses were decorated in a beautiful furniture. So when we look at this picture, what colors you see in this art? I see some green, blue, orange, red, yellow, almost all primary and secondary colors. What is the topic of this picture? Do you see that it looks like it was like a worshipping, like an emperor and or the goddess? And do you see any symbols, shapes? Maybe you can recognize on this picture. So as you can see at the background, we can see the writing which they used to tell the stories, and the writing is more used with symbols, and symbols is like representing what would so if you wanted to say life, what would represent life? and you would think about the symbol, a picture of that word, or like uh, nature or birds or animals or um, any other symbols that would represent that. What is that dominated in this picture? So as you can see, the figures were started to be more drawn in detail, even though the perspective of the figures were a little bit shown in the interesting angle, but you can see already that they are very into details and drawing the hands and the face and the body. So it is different comparing to Mesopotamia or Stone Age, where it was more simplicity drawings, as now we see in Egyptian. And if we look in our day, Egyptian really inspired a modern artist to follow the ideas, and in 20s, the art decor movement in interior design was all based about how Egyptians were decorating their tombs and interior. And also, as you can see, the Oscar nomination statue was also kind of related with the Egyptian worshipping and for the greatest. And the statue looks very familiar with Egyptian, Asian Egyptian sculptures. And as you can see, the fashion also was inspired and used some of the symbols of the Egyptian into the clothing. So painting with watercolors. Today, we're gonna do some painting with watercolors. And painting background and exploring watercolors, we'll talk about it a bit closely when we're gonna start working. We're gonna also learn a little bit about how to draw like figures, simplifying way, and understanding the landscape rules and composition. So one of the artists who was inspired by Egyptians and Japan style was Gustav Klimt. And if you can look at this picture, the tree of life, he incorporate the symbolism. He was the kind of new wave of symbolism in the art movement inventor. And you see he was using triangles, the birds, the eyes, and other symbols that was used in Egyptian, and also how the figures were shown as Egyptians would like to draw on their walls and pictures. It's the same angle. So we're gonna look at this figure drawing and composition. And Gustav Klimt had transformed transitional allegory and symbolism into new language, and was great artist of art movement of symbolism and art nouveau. So these are examples that are very important to understand the composition. This picture shows most important general guidance for practice, our center of the interest. And what is center of the interest? It's always something, what is important to you to show. For example, in the first picture of the pyramid or triangle, the main object is the trees. And it was put into the triangle shape that would be, your eyes would concentrate on the tree shape. For the cross composition, the boats were our important interest point, and that way the composition of the cross will help to incorporate that. So as we see, we need to look at the actual your interest point as the shape, even you are drawing something else. But first, we need to recognize what kind of shape it is and what composition I can use for this certain shape. So if we look at the radiating lines, it's kind of like a sun that has, so it's good for drawing clouds and sky and the landscape, or like a city with the streets and buildings that are like a shape of the sun in the different directions, basically going around. And the L or rectangle shape is the one that is uh, on the one side or another side, not in the middle. You are showing your interest point. If we go back to the slide here, you can tell that this woman is standing on the side, and it is a composition of L shape. So there is one that is always good to remember, the rule of thirds. In the rule of thirds, the intersection of lines that divide the picture area into thirds are marked by where you see circles. One of these points is the good location for your center of interest. So if you're drawing, for example, like a person, you would concentrate on these parts of your picture where these circles are. This is your best understanding where is your focal point should be. So this is our references of all this information we just covered here in the slideshow. And now we're gonna put this into the practice.